What's going on, guys? I want to talk about Bitcoin. We finally saw some movement. So we are going to start on the high time frame. I'm looking at the BLX ticker that shows as much chartable history as TradingView possibly shows. So I want to talk about the MACD oscillator and what it means for our high time frame, and then we'll whittle down into the lower time frames. Some of you have already heard this. I may sound a little repetitive when I'm talking about this, but I think it's important to keep in mind to make our picture, our local picture, we need to keep the big picture in mind. And I have some new followers, so I want them to see my thoughts there as well. The oscillators that are not limited, for example, RSI is constricted to 0 to 100. But oscillators such as MACD that have no limits have never been stretched this far on Bitcoin. It was a pretty parabolic move on the MACD compared to on price. So it is my opinion that before we can continue upward, we need to settle this oscillator down. Now I'm currently on the monthly. You see here that monthly flipped red, which suggests that this entire piece was corrected right here. And now we're correcting at least this entire piece, but we still haven't flipped red to confirm that we could possibly complete that correction. Now it's possible that we just continue sideways and we never do flip red. Something like that. But I would really like to see the monthly MACD flip red and hold red for a little bit. We don't have to go down necessarily, but sideways at least for a little bit before reversing. So let's switch over to the BitMEX chart. And we've got something like this. I'm going to turn off log here. It actually looks a little better. This piece here looks a little better in log than it does in linear. So I've said many times, actually, I apologize. Let me go back to. I've said many times that the correction should take longer than the impulse. Now if we look at historical indices and historical Bitcoin, the corrections actually take about as long as the impulse itself on a high degree. So if this is our impulse here, and this is our correction behind it, then you can see we actually corrected a little faster than we impulsed. Now, in terms of percentage move, obviously this was significantly larger than this move here. So what I'm really referring to in that is the subwaves of a corrective move. In a corrective move, anytime you impulse, the correction behind it is likely to be 3 times as long in time than the impulse itself. It's not referring to the high degree impulsive moves. However, because I don't believe we've ever seen a correction of this degree, I do believe that we could continue correcting significantly longer. So using that time frame, that time reference, 840 days, 756 days, is similar ratio to what we've seen on previous completed corrections. Well, I say that, but your low would have been back here, right? Your end of the correction. If you're suggesting the correction was over, it would have ended here. There's not a completed move behind that. So you're talking about 371 days. That's less than half the time. So that doesn't make sense in terms of our ratio. And we expect the correction to continue. But like I said, the oscillators have never reached these bounds before. I believe we are correcting on a higher degree than what we've seen in the past. And therefore, I believe it will take significantly longer than previous corrections in terms of time to the impulse. All right, so that said, let's flip to the weekly BitMEX. And we've got this three-wave move here. You can see this was an impulsive move within a correction and a correction behind it. In terms of time, 56 days versus 210 days. For me, excuse me, for me, I have this all labeled as an A wave of a larger correction. So if the A is the impulsive move of the corrective piece, then we would expect the B to take significantly longer, just like I showed you here. The second wave of a correction, ignore the lettering, the second wave of a correction should take longer than the first wave of that correction. So if this is all one piece, then we would expect the second wave of the correction to take significantly longer. So what does that mean for this piece here? Obviously, we completed a move here, right? This we can label an A. And we've started some kind of B in here. I need to go down one more. Is this all a B? Is B complete here? This is actually, my degrees are going to run into each other. Is B complete here? If this was our impulse and this was our correction behind it, time-wise, it shouldn't be complete. We just now reached 1x, 1 times as long as the impulse. But the bottom, the lows, were back here. And I'm actually suggesting that this piece was completed here, but that's up in the air, and we can discuss that a bit later. So, one second, let me close this door. But I showed you before, the second wave here took more than 3 times as long. 1, 2, 3 times as long. So why would we have 1, 2 only being 1 times as long? We expect it to be around 3 times as long, which could take it into this range. So if it is indeed done, we could be looking for something like this, where we move up in a similar percentage fashion and similar times fashion, 350% across 190 days. Let's pull it from this low. Something like this. This would be a massive move. If this were to happen, then my opinion is still that we have a large running flat here like this. This is not a new idea. This is something I've talked about before. It's published on TradingView. But we would have something like this before we actually have a parabolic move up. It is my opinion that this is not the count, and time is the reason for that. If we look at the MACD subdivision, currently on a weekly, you see we just flipped red on the weekly. We flipped red here, that's an A. In the subwave B, we expect a flip to the red. And then on the final leg C, we would expect a flip to the red. So the weekly MACD should flip red 3 times before this correction is over. So far, we only have one flip to the red. And in my chart, we might actually flip red 4 times because the subwave B would flip red twice on the C. This was just an A here. I am counting this entire piece here as an A wave with a B behind it and then a C behind that. Now, how that plays out is the next question. If this is our count, then how is this B going to look? And really, how is A of B going to look? Because that's what we're looking at next. I don't really care where this finishes at the end of the year right now. We just started, it's January. So I don't really care where this finishes in December, November, December. I want to know where this next move will go. Currently, I still am in longs for that. I don't believe it's topped out here. And we'll go down to the lower time frame and take a look. So this is the 3-day. As you can see, MACD still hasn't flipped positive on the 3-day. We're testing this downtrend, and we have the lower high here at 10,500. 10,100 is a level of interest for me based on volume. So we just got over this point here, the point of control for this entire move. So that's great. We're above that, but we're actually kind of retesting it right now. We've seen pretty stiff rejection from 8,500, almost 8,500 level. But I personally don't believe that this move up is complete. Now, if we break this blue trend line, then that would suggest that this move here is complete, whether it's an A or a completed correction of its own ABC. The first corrective piece, we have a corrective structure that completed, and it either completed there or it completed here. I don't care too much either way. The main reason I have it completing here is because of a trend line break right here. So when we break this trend line of the third wave of correction, that suggests that the correction is complete. We did that and then broke the low, which suggests to me that this is an A, B, C wave. Just making sure I haven't forgotten to cover anything here. Let's go ahead and move down to the daily. And you can see the subdivision here of our corrective move is the same as what I talked about before. On the daily, we had a flip into red. Now, obviously, it was delayed behind this corrective move, but this move down caused us to turn red. Obviously, this move down didn't cause us to turn red. This move down caused us to turn red. Therefore, this is our first wave of the correction. Then we flipped red again in the subwave B. Notice how, because it was downsloping, we stayed red for most of the subwave B. We flipped to red again for the C wave. Once this flips blue, that confirms 3 waves of corrective move complete. Blue is just positive MACD line. This is not standard MACD indicator. This is the standard MACD line that you see on the standard MACD indicator. There's multiple pieces to the MACD, the standard MACD. We isolate the standard MACD line and show that on the chart. We're not looking too good on the low time frames. In fact, this daily is getting pretty ugly. If I turn off my MACD candles, I think it just flipped to red, didn't it? Not quite. Can't tell where it opened. It has to be red. Oh, sorry. Yep. So that's not a very good daily so far today. Now that said, I still think we're going up, but it's something to keep in mind. We are retesting this trend line here. Let me zoom back out to here so I can get that VPVR level. And let's go down to the 4 hour. So we've got a couple things here. We've got this previous range high. So we can define our range. Let me just use a box. We can define our range pretty much like this. Falling back into this range would not be bullish at all. If we do something like this, then I would expect a break of the lows. So we are currently above that range high, and we're above this point of control. So my primary expectation here is that we do form some kind of corrective wave before continuing up again. And how high this correction is, or how high this final impulsive move is going to go, is kind of in the air. I don't use fibs much, but if we measure it this way, $8,700, $8,800, $9,200, $10,000, all relevant levels for me. And I have this as some kind of WX, Y, A, B, C. I'm not exactly sure. If this is an AB, our B wave took more than enough time of our A wave, but this C wave is quite odd. Could it be some kind of ending diagonal? Well, I don't think so, because we would have to overlap. I'm not really trying to talk about Elliott wave too much in this video, so I apologize, but just kind of brainstorming what shape this could take. Could this be a W, X, Y? I don't like this as a W because it looks like 5 waves. But something is possible. It is possible that our move just started here. And that's mostly what I'm basing my analysis on. I believe this was some kind of A, B, C going in. So if we measure that, 9,800 would kind of be our projected top. But right now I expect a lot of shorts to be opening. People are going to be getting bearish, saying look at the rejection, and we will use that as fuel for the next move up. Where you need to be cautious is if we pull back into this range. If we pull back into the range, then you have to wait for us to come back out of the range for any longs. As long as we're within that range, we're looking for shorts, we're not looking for longs. The daily MACD did finally flip over, which I was waiting for forever. And so far it looks reasonably strong. I don't see any reason on a daily to think that we're rolling over yet. I think that's pretty much all I really had to cover today. I feel like it was a pretty comprehensive outlook. Let me cover that real quick. We'll go to a 3-day chart. So based on my expectation that this is all one B wave, that this was an A wave and we're in a B wave, I'm expecting it to look something like this, then a final move down before a move up of this degree. So I expect much of 2020 to be down sloping, kind of like this. In fact, if we take a bars pattern of that and then stretch it out, so this is our B of A. This could be very valid. Something like this. What changes my mind? What would make me bullish? There's not a price level to make me bullish. First of all, we would have to take out the 10,584, this high right here. But doing so does not automatically mean that we're continuing up. We could still be in a B wave even if we take out this high. So what would make me bullish is a continuation pattern of some sort. Sorry, let me redraw that. So say we come up and then we do this, or even this, where it's an upward sloping correction, then I get bullish for a continued move upward. Upward sloping corrections were very common in our previous move up of 350%. I'm not going to grab every point, but you can see the tops here, even through here, this was upward sloping. So we would expect an upward sloping correction if we're going to be bullish in this degree. So for me to be bullish, I would need to see us take out this lower high, but also form some kind of correction that suggests continuation. Okay guys, that's really all I've got. Feel free to hit me up if you have any questions about the video. And in the meantime, we'll see you in the next one.